Hey, it's about 8 o'clock tonight, and I had a couple of things I wanted to say. So, what I'm gonna do right now is this is gonna be like story time, right? And this isn't gonna be long. This is gonna be, I guess you could say, watching something unfold that I was unaware of at the time. Retrospect. And the moral of this story, or the next couple of videos, is going to be taking responsibility for your own actions and moving forward. Alright, so when I was 6 years old, I moved out of my mother's apartment. For a lot of issues, I moved in with my grandparents. But I had a little brother that was about maybe a 1-year-old baby, and he stayed with my mother. And at that time, my mother was married to his father. She was never married to mine. So again, 6 years old, I moved out. I moved in with my grandparents. Okay. What happened next is, a few years later, when I was probably 8 years old, I was visiting my mother's apartment to go see my brother. I didn't live with her again, but I was visiting. And I saw this man when I went to her apartment. To this day, I haven't forgot this man. He was a very tall man. I'm assuming he was 6'2" or 6'5". I don't know. I was 8 years old, so somebody who's 5 feet looks like a giant. But this guy was like definitely over 6 feet. He was a lighter skinned black guy, maybe yellow type. He had a beard and a bald head. Had some tattoos. He was real tall. He was real big. I remember when I came into the house, he said something like, "What's up, little man?" And I looked at him, and I had a strange feeling. Something about him, something about him was, I don't know. He wasn't like the men that I knew before. I knew something about him was different. It was something kind of dark about him, or something. I don't know. I was only 8, but I could tell something about him was off. And I wondered, who the hell is this guy? So he walks down the hall, and he goes on past me, and he goes outside. I was probably at the house, at my mother's apartment, for maybe an hour or so, I guess. I don't remember now, but I left and went back to my grandparents' house. Keep in mind, I just said I was 8 years old now. By this time, my brother was probably 2 or 3 years old. So when I was 14 years old, oh yeah, I forgot. This story is called the Braid 'em Up Bitches. And you're going to see why. When I was 14 years old, I went to go see a cousin of mine who lived up the street. And she lived next door to the projects. And in the projects, there was this group of, if I remember correctly, 3 sisters. One of them had blonde hair, one of them had black hair, one of them had brown hair. And they all had kids. And they all lived together in projects. And they didn't work. In order to make money, they would braid hair on the porch or in the house. And from sun up to sundown, they would be braiding people's hair. So my cousin's mother called them the Braid 'em Up Bitches. So sometimes I would call my cousin. I'd be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" She'd be like, "I'm going to the Braid 'em Ups." And I'd be like, "Okay." I knew where she was going. And at the time, I had I was getting braids. I wanted to get some braids. And my cousin took me over to the Braid 'em Ups. And when I came up to their porch, the lady with the blonde hair said to me, "Hey, don't I know you?" And I said to her, "No, I've never seen you before. I had heard of the Braid 'em Up Bitches, but I didn't know them personally, right?" I told her, "No, I've never seen you before. I don't know you." She was like, "Yeah, I know you. Your mother's name is so and so, right?" I was like, "Yeah, that is my mother." "Oh yeah, your mother used to fool with my cousin Dino." So I said, none of these names are the real names of the people, by the way. So I said, Dino, I don't remember any Dino. And she was like, oh, now I'm getting text messages. And she was like, oh, yeah, your mother used to fool around with my cousin Dino. I said, I don't remember, I don't know any Dino. She didn't know that I didn't live with my mother, so obviously she didn't know me, but she had seen me at some point. So I was like, I don't know any Dino. So she gets upset. She's like, oh, you want to play like you don't know me now? Oh, it's like that, huh? Okay, all right, it's all good. Yeah, play like you don't know me. Yeah, whatever. Like you don't know my cousin Dino. He was staying at your mother's house. Oh, but now you don't know nobody. And I said, I really don't know who you're talking about. I haven't lived with my mother in a very long time. So the lady rolled her eyes and flicked her blonde hair and gave me an attitude. So I told my cousin, I'm not getting my hair braided over here. So we left. Now, I just said I was 14. Years later, my brother was about 3 years old. Now, fast forward to now, I'm in my 30s. My brother's in his late 20s. My brother is in prison right now, which is probably no surprise. Maybe a few months ago, I was talking to my brother, and he asked me, hey, you remember that guy named Dino? And I said, Dino? No, I don't remember any Dino. He said, yeah, you remember Dino. And I guess it was because it was my brother saying it. I had a memory of this name, but I couldn't put a face to it. I said, maybe I remember the name, but I don't remember the face. And he told me, oh, the guy that used to stay with mom back in the day. I was like, no, I don't remember him. This is what my brother from prison proceeded to tell me. He told me he was walking in one of the cell blocks or whatever they have out there. And this guy stops him and he says, I bet I know your mother's name. And my brother says, what? And the guy says, so-and-so. Right? And my brother's like, how do you know my mother? And he's like, I bet I know your brother's name. Me. And he says my name. And so my brother's like, how do you know my mother and my brother? So the guy tells him, I'm Dino. You probably don't remember me because you were a baby, but I'm the one who got your mother put out of her apartment because I was selling dope out of her house. And so he introduces himself to my brother, even though he knew my brother when my brother was a baby. He introduces himself to my brother as Dino. You know, whoever my mom used to hang out with or whatever. And when my brother told me this, I had a flashback to the first time I saw Dino walking down that hallway. When he told me this, I had another flashback to that time I was on the Braid Up bitch's stoop at the projects trying to get my hair braided and the lady gave me an attitude. And then it occurred to me, I remember the couple of times I went to my mother's apartment, there were always cars coming in and out all the time. People always like coming to the door, or this man would just be hanging out outside and stuff like that. But I was too young to understand what was going on, and my grandmother didn't let me go to my mother's place very much. All this being said to say, in retrospect, my brother's life was really already playing out. It's almost like this was planned. He meets the same criminal that was in his mother's house 20-something years ago. So, all this being said to say, the Braid 'em Up bitches were right. I did know Dino. Now, I'm going to go ahead and cut this short. This is just a story I'm telling you guys, which is going to bring me back to taking responsibility for the things that you do. Now, I'm not blaming anyone. My brother made his choices. He's where he is. I know in my own heart that he was put in certain situations that set him up to be where he is right now, but he is the one who chose to pull those cards out of the deck to be where he is right now. So not blaming, I'm just saying it sure is strange how you meet a person as a child and you don't even really know them, and then you both end up in the same situation. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and cut this video short, and I'll make the next one. Yeah, this video is about the Braid 'em Up bitches.